All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had good lunch. Let's get started with task 1 for this unit, apply communication strategy in the workplace, BSBXCM401. Always fill in this detail. The name, the number is given to you already, the date of assessment whenever you are submitting, signature, date of signing, and leave rest to me. There are 8 questions, and this is the due date. Like due dates are very much set as per the pattern. If you ever consider the week you are in is week 1, we meet again in week 5. So end of week 3, end of week 4 are the due dates. So in this instance, it will be, if this is week 1, 2, 6th of November for this unit 7, and 13th of November for the next unit, 6th of November for all the tasks. Doesn't matter, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That's all standard. That's all standard. Nothing new here. Short question answer, which will demonstrate your skills and knowledge in various aspects, I would say. Insert your detail on page 1, sign the declaration form. Do not send me any submission without your signature. It will only gonna to come back to you, right? I've been repeating this every time. Still, occasionally I get something that, you should send the whole package, except it's a heavy video file. That's all right. You can send it separate because it's how you are showing your professionalism and also easier for both of us. If you're not reading the fine line and sending me half of the work, then I read it, then I say, oh, this is not that. Then I chase you, then you submit again, then I chase you, So let's minimize the effort of going back and forth. Refer to the study guide. That's all right. I already gave you the due date, so that doesn't apply. That's all cool. That's all cool. Yes. Let's get started. Briefly describe the legislation that influence how we communicate and treat each other in the workplace. Please provide 3 examples. I would like everyone to think about it and give me some examples of how we communicate and treat each other's. Please, any idea? Anyone?
Ishan, I have a question, just a quick one.
Please. Yeah, go on.
When it's when we in relation to the legislation as in the task, is this in reference to a national legislation or a some sort of sectorial one?
Australian one, related to work.
Related to work.
Yep. We don't really care how you talk on a street. Yeah, because it's a communication strategy in the workplace, as the unit says. This is the name of the unit here. I'll just copy that a bit. Yeah, so everything that we'll be talking about, any communication strategy, will be related to the workplace setting. Yeah. Make sense, Frederick?
Well, it does. Just thinking along the lines of, if it's a national legislation, a state legislation, it covers
doesn't
workplace
matter. Any of them is fine. National or state, any of them is fine. Some states have their own legislation, but you can pick them up. But always the federal legislation are higher, and you'll find more of them than the state legislation. But you can choose any of them. Yeah. With the communication, I don't think there'll be a lot like a state-based. There'll be more national or federal-based legislation.
And how much of this legislation will will sort of, I suppose, policies should be in line with such legislations. For instance,
100.
what I'm trying to get at here is for an organization in its communications policy, it would probably have there stipulated somewhere that the only communication, the official communication line that comes out of anyone of any organization must come from the top and not sort of, somewhere down at the hierarchy, but right at the top.
Mm.
Would that be something that can influence a national legislation?
Okay, so whatever as a company level you would be doing should not overrule what your federal or state legislation has said. First of all, the state legislation could be a bit more on top of the federal one, right? So for example, if Australian legislation has said something that you should treat each other fair, if that's what the national has states, that will never come that treating anyone by any means is fair, right? Because then it's overruling the higher authority. But there comes the national one or federal, then comes a state, and every company will have the policy, procedure, process and procedure, right? Which will link to the higher rules, right? Because a company cannot say that, oh, I don't care what the national rule says, here you belong, because company is a part of state. State is a part of nation, right? So this is how the whole hierarchy will follow. So it doesn't matter any policy that a company might refer to, right? They cannot overrule what the state or a federal rules are saying, legislation are saying. You have to map everything to the national or state one. Yeah.
Okay, so that means for that first question, a legislation that may influence would be very restrictive of, where that sort of thing, discrimination and all, everything that comes under that. It's kind of like intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And policies that support that will include things like, which communications that are being delivered and who, from who has to be really specified,
Yes.
treated officially.
Yep. So if we are talking about the legislation, like we already covered in PPT, but I'll give you some example. Number one is age discrimination. If someone is a teenager or someone is in their 70s, you should treat both of them fairly equally, right? If it is some elderly people and you give them a lot of respect that they could overrule the system, then that's not right. Right? So there should be no discrimination based on a gender or based on an age, right? You can talk about racial discrimination. Just because you are Christian, it doesn't, I mean, when I say you, I mean someone, yeah? Don't take it like that. Just because someone is Christian does not mean they can favor the Christian brother, sister and neglect the other religion. No. Any ethnicity, any nationality, everything should be treated fairly. So when you are communicating with any of them, right, with a different race, then you should be fair enough. You should be impartial, right? Whether you like that fella or not is your personal choice. But when it comes to legislation, on paper, while you're treating professionally, you should be on the same page. Maybe as a person, you don't like that person or the other fella, right? But that does not give you any right to misbehave with that person or mistreat that person. Right? They can have, someone could face legal consequences if they do that. And on top of the best one is human right law, right? If someone goes to human right, that's it, right? If they can prove that I was mistreated by a so-and-so organization, company, or a person manager, it's very hard to come out from there. Yeah. So what we are looking as a response here, or three or few more example, is all such legislation. Yeah.
So that means for that one, there will be several legislations that will influence how we communicate and treat each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Good stuff, Frederick. Thank you. Yes, hope it's clear to everyone else as well. Yeah. Just few legislation, write the name and a description. So over here, I might say human rights legislation, right? I can say Age Discrimination Act. I can say Racial Discrimination Act, right? Or Diversity Act, right? If someone is following any religion, right? Okay, so in India, we have a religion. Okay, so India is a very multi-religion country. So we have a religion which is Jainism, like from one Jain monk back in, I think it was the same era as Jesus Christ, you know, like Buddha and Jesus Christ and Mahavir was the same time, like around 2000 somewhat years ago. And then those person are not only vegetarian, they also refrain some of the particular type of vegetables like onion and garlic and many things. So if you find someone, right, don't comment on their thing. It doesn't allow you. The law will prohibit. Right? If you're ignorant, that's fine. But knowingly, unknowingly, you shouldn't make fun of anyone. Yeah, or comment on someone's religion. Yeah. Right. Next one. Number 2. Describe your organizational requirement around workplace communication in the following area: policy and protocol, code of conduct, and organization reputation and culture. Right? So what is your organizational requirement? What is a code of conduct? So if I talk about APTC code of conduct, we have that, okay, we need to, treat the confidential information very smartly and anonymously, before you reply all, you need to ask yourself, does everyone in a CC need to know my reply? Like for example, right? If I get an email from APTC HR department, hey, hello everyone, hope this email finds you well. Would you mind providing your banking detail to me? So HR is telling everyone to provide the updated banking detail, right? So if I'm replying to that email, do I have to select reply or reply all? Even though it's addressed to everyone, do I want everyone in APTC to know my bank details? Then you need to ask that question to yourself, even though, yes, absolutely, Wilson. Yeah. Unless you wanted to make a fool of yourself, that, hey, here's my bank detail. Even though it's addressed to everyone, but the reply is expected individually, right? Same thing could be another issue. Like I am very much particular about reply and reply all, and I've seen many candidates messing it around, and that's why I'm reiterating that fact. Let's say APTC has a uniform, right? And APTC HR or the person in charge of uniform sends an email to every APTC staff member. Hello everyone, we are going for the updated uniform. We are changing from blue to orange or from orange to green or whatever, right? Please give me your updated polo shirts and trouser size. Would I go reply or reply all? I don't want everyone else to know that I'm XL and 38 as a vest size, right? Just kidding. I'm not XL, neither 38. Right? But I don't want everyone else to know that, okay, this is my size, this is my figure. Yeah, I'm fit or I'm obese. Yeah. So just be mindful. And how do you know how to act as in a code of conduct? Right? How do I treat my students? Sometimes I'm late in replying email, apologies for that. But apart from that, when it comes to marking, like I always filter my inbox by the weekend. I would have hardly 15, 20 emails sitting, which I really want in an inbox. And I told you guys how I filter my inbox as well. Did I or not? Did I tell you or not how I filter my inbox? Just one sec, guys. Right, moving on. Describe the technique for resolving following communication challenge. So we got some challenges: conflict with a client, potential risk, unethical, appropriate communication, any visual from representation. You can follow this from the PPT or the learner's guide. Conflict with clients or team, how do you follow it? You can write in general, or you can talk about your own company. Either of them is fine. Any potential risk of safety, how do you take care of it? Unethical communication, any visual from presented, anything that's outside of workplace. Okay. All clear so far? Any doubt, just ask me to pause, and I will explain that. Yeah. Number 4, briefly describe the methods and technique for participating in workplace discussion. Include active listening, questioning, providing any feedback in your answer. So the hint is already given to you. What we are talking is about active listening, questioning, paraphrasing. How do you provide feedback? Like Frederick earlier asked me, that was a very relevant question. You can write some of your own discussion example. Like, be professional enough, just cover that thing, and then to explain it further, you can write about more example, the work-related example. Yeah, how does the questioning help? How does active listening will help? Okay. Number 5. Describe the fundamental principle of cross-cultural communication. We have discussed that a lot, right? Yes, again, it was Frederick who shared his experience about dealing with a blind person. Yeah, physically disabled, physically challenged person with a special need or disability. Be mindful, do not offer. Remember all the things, and that's why, see, most of the things I do are intentional. Okay. In PPT, I could reduce the content, but I didn't, because that would help you to fill the gap here. Yeah, so you're not looking for resources elsewhere. That will directly help you with your stuff. Number 6, briefly describe the following presentation method and how you apply them in your workplace. Formal presentation, how do you use it? The PPT for presentation and everything. How does it help you? Any flip chart that adds more clarity, How do you use team meeting and any written instruction? Remember that example of fire extinguisher, how a standard procedure will help you using them. Okay. All good till 6? Am I going faster, or it's all right? I think they're easy enough, and that's why, yeah. Okay, 2 more to go. Describe the communication method suited to your audience and workplace requirement. What communication method would you use? Are you using verbal, non-verbal, written, or visual? Remember, we had 4 of them: verbal, non-verbal, written, or visual. Just talk about as many of them, each of them, 1 or 2 of them, as long as you can fit the word limit. That's all cool. And the 4th style of communication, the passive, the aggressive, passive-aggressive, and assertive. Win-lose, win-win, lose-win, lose-lose. All right, talk about them. The features of them. What are the features of passive communication style or aggressive? Just talk about them. Most of the information you can find from PPT. If you need to enhance your knowledge, the learner's guide was shared. Any question, concern? Anyone? Okay. If not, I am sharing this file with you guys. So you can see the highlighted red fonts inside. Otherwise, it's the same file on My Village. Okay. Now, what I am about to do is again quit Zoom if there is no question related task 1. So I can convert the recording, upload on a YouTube. The first one, I should stop the recording, sir.